Everyone, Jason Gelbo here with Nick Tasso, taking a look at our favorite stacks on tonight's 10-game slate, which, looking at the pitching, fairly easy to kind of narrow down who you want to stack tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. This is probably one of the worst slates that I've seen early on in a season. We're, 4 or 5 days into it, and the pitching on this slate is just pathetic. Mainly because some good pitchers are kind of going earlier today. But you know what? 7 o'clock, here we go.
Yeah, first one here, you got New York and Baltimore. Luis Severino versus Ubaldo Jimenez. In Camden Yards, a friendly place to hit. I don't mind stacking both these sides. I actually have some interest in stacking the Yankees because I like Greg Bird a lot tonight, and I like the guys around him too.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think for me, stacking Yankees might not be possible just because their price tag went up enormous from the past few games against Tampa Bay. So, you see guys like Ellsbury, who's in the low threes now, 4,300, and I don't know if I'm willing to pay that up for it. And even Bird at 4,000, I think that's reasonable against Ubaldo. But if you're doing for a full stack, Jacoby Ellsbury is one guy that I wouldn't play at that price.
Yeah, it's kind of the only Sanchez 5.5 is just an outrageous price
Holiday too, 4,600. I don't know if they can justify it. It's a good ballpark, terrible pitcher, but those price tags are really high. So you might have to really pick your poison with them if you're going to go with it. Maybe not do a full stack. Maybe just see who you can fit in. I wouldn't mind Sanchez, but 5.5 is high. But Greg Bird is one guy that I'm looking at, and even Headley. He's actually played pretty well so far.
Yeah, he has. And FanDuel, they have much more reasonable prices. DK, as you mentioned, did get priced up. FanDuel, no one over 3,200 there outside of Ellsbury, who was at 3,200.
Yeah, and that's good. And that's what you want to see. So it's definitely site specific. But it feels like DraftKings thinks that the Yankees are in Coors Field right now.
Yeah, we kind of see that with a lot of pricing tonight. It's a little bit weird. Yeah. As far as Severino goes, I don't mind going up against him. Small sample size, but he has struggled with right-handed bats, which Baltimore basically brings a lot to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at their big thumpers in Trumbo and Machado, and I think that I'm going to run into the same issue that I just said about the Yankees is the prices are too high. But now that I think about everything, when you go through roster construction, and especially on DraftKings, and you have no starting pitcher over 9,000, you probably can fit a lot of hefty price bats. So that's probably why we saw a huge influx in pricing on this entire slate. So going back to Baltimore, actually, those two guys I really don't mind. And even Chris Davis, he's only 4,900. Comparatively speaking, I think that's a pretty good price for him.
Yeah, a lot of upside with this team. Good park to hit in. It looks like wind's blowing out. I can see this one being a shootout. We've kind of gotten the Baltimore games where it's been those ugly kind of 4-3, 5-3 games, but I think this one has potential to really go off.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I have a concern about is Severino was terrible last year, but the year before that, when he came up in the short stint, he was actually pretty serviceable, was kind of decent. So at this point, I'm not 100% sure what Severino you're going to get, but I think we're going to see much of what we saw last year.
Yeah, he's certainly one of those guys who's talented, but hasn't put all the pieces together. And, going into his first start of the season, could he have done that over the last, basically training session, spring training and everything? We don't know.
Yeah, so to be honest, I really like Baltimore, but I'm not sure what to get with Severino right now.
Yeah. New York and Miami next year. Zach Wheeler, Swing, and Chen. I don't have any real stacking interest here. I like a couple of Mets bats, but not enough to call it a stack.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd take one-offs really with the Mets going up against the lefty and Chen, but there's not really too much that I like, even though they are priced pretty considerable when you consider everything around them. But I don't know, Chen he's a guy that's bad, but some games he can sort of be on, and this Mets team has really been anemic, and I'd probably stay away from them.
Yeah, and I think because I actually think Chen might be an actual viable option on tonight's slate, which says a lot. I don't really have any interest stacking.
Yeah, and even though Wheeler, he's young, I think he still has a little bit more upside, a lot of strikeout potential throughout the entire Miami bat, so I think I'm staying away from Miami.
As well. Toronto and Tampa, Menendez, Francisco Liriano. The bats for Toronto aren't priced up as like they usually are. I mean, Donaldson's your most expensive. I just don't know if the stat gets the job done here in Tropicana. I don't think Andres really has a ton of blow up potential either.
Yeah, I could kind of see using a Toronto stack. I'm not thrilled with them, but the only reason why I probably would is because you do have their prices a little bit lower. Like even guys like Hendrys Morales is only 3,700 on DraftKings, so I wouldn't mind using a couple guys, but going a full on 4 or 5 stack, I don't think it's in the cards on this slate.
I don't think so either. None the Rays. I mean, Liriano, you look at this Rays team, and they were bottom half against lefties. Did not start out good against CC Sabathia, who's left-handed. They will shift some guys around and bring some more righties into the lineup, but Liriano's main issue has always really been walks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think outside of Longoria, you don't have many patient batters in Tampa Bay. You have a lot of free swingers, which might hurt them. And at the end of the day, Laureano is the #1 price starting pitcher on this slate that is a concern because they are expecting a pretty decent start from him, but he's still up in the air as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's just basically, if he's going to be around the plate, Liriano should have a solid outing. If he's not, he'll probably be out of there very soon.
Yeah, you'll know in the first inning or two.
Yeah. Oakland and Texas, AJ Griffin versus Raul Alcantara. This one I have actually some interest in the A's here because I think they're a contrarian stack, and mainly because I like some of those lefties like Vogt and Joyce, but Ryan Healy and Chris Davis have some power from the right side too.
Yeah, absolutely. I know this game probably would be a little bit different if it was in Oakland. Maybe I'd go after some of these starters, but I'm kind of with you. It might not be a great outing by Griffin, so I don't mind Davis and also a few other guys. Rajay Davis isn't bad as well as Poop, and even Healy. He's been pretty good so far. Priced up a little bit, but at the end of the day, this slate, you're going to have so much for batters. I don't mind Oakland, and it's going to be such a contrarian stack because nobody in their right mind plays Oakland at all.
No, I mean, they really haven't. I mean, at most, they maybe just play a one-off or two from it, but not the full-blown stack. And on Texas, I mean, I don't mind these guys. I mean, they're actually not priced that bad.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's under 5K on DraftKings, and I don't mind it. You really aren't sure what you're going to get with Alcantara's, and the Oakland bullpen is pretty good, but I think they've been worked a little bit too much lately. So I think we're going to see a little regression out of them, which means that these Texas bats could be in really good play, especially guys like Gallo and even Mazzara, because they are priced pretty low.
Yeah, I mean, and I think probably the same continuous storyline we're going to get is FanDuel. These stacks are all tremendously priced because you look, I mean, A's, there's no one over 3K outside of Chris Davis. Even Texas, I mean, you look at Odor, he's your most expensive bat, and he's only 3.3.
Yeah, it is crazy. And we're going to see that a lot this year. We're going to see so much difference in pricing, but you just got to go with it and figure out the slate itself on each site.
Yeah. Minnesota, Chicago next. Phil Hughes, Derek Holland. Phil Hughes has actually had some decent success against Chicago. This guy did have home run problems, but Chicago's not a home run hitting team.
No, absolutely not. We saw at times last year where Chicago's bats were extremely quiet. They still have the likes of Todd Frazier and Jose Abreu, but at times, if you can work through those two guys, there's not much else to really get excited for on the White Sox side, especially when you're talking about power.
Yeah, so I mean, I think for the most part, I don't think they're a stackable option. Minnesota, on the other hand, is for me. I like Brian Dozier, Robbie Grossman, Miguel Sano. It's kind of a 3. If you want to roll out a Byron Buxton, who's basically King every bat, he'll come off one of these days. I mean, he adds the contrarian sense to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't mind going with Minnesota. I feel like Holland, though, is in the same spot as Severino. You're not really sure what you're going to get from either one of those. But when you look at pricing-wise, I really don't mind these Minnesota bats. And they, for the most part, they've all had huge success against lefties throughout their careers. So I definitely could see Minnesota being one of those most popular stacks as well tonight, but one that pays off.
Yeah, and the thing, they all carry some higher strikeout rates, but you look at Holland, I mean, only a 13.2% strikeout rate against right-handers last year. And the home runs, I mean, 1.44 homes per nine. So with big power hitters like Dozier, Grossman, and Sano, I mean, there's huge home run potential, especially in this ballpark.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where I would probably tend towards using batters here because I don't think Holland is that good.
Yeah. Royals in Houston, next one. Mike Fiers versus Jason Vargas. Royals, I mean, not to say Fiers is a good pitcher. I just don't like stacking him. I think they're just going to be a bottom 10 offense this season. And there's always not really a ton of home run potential.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw last year a little bit of a regression from Kansas City bats, and I think that's going to start a little bit more this year. And Fiers, like you said, he's not that good, but he also isn't that bad, and he doesn't get tons of blowout games. So I don't really see a whole lot from this Kansas City team. Maybe a few one-offs with like Hosmer or Kane, but that's about it right now for me.
Yeah, and on the Houston side, I mean, they've been in a couple good spots here to start the season, haven't really shown off a big stack. Jose Altuve hasn't really gotten off to a great start. I mean, George Springer, obviously came through against the lefty last night. Gets another lefty here, not particularly a good one. Jason Vargas has always been just kind of league average at best lefty. For me, I mean, I've been kind of living or dying with the Houston bats so far. I'm going to kind of stay on that train.
Yeah, I'd probably just do a mini stack, if anything, with probably two of them, mainly Springer, because outside of getting picked off a couple times the other day, he has been pretty productive at the plate. I don't even mind guys like Gaddis just because he can hit lefties so well. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure how far Vargas might get into this game, so it might just be him getting one or two at bats and then having to face righties. And nobody wants Evan Gaddis on your team when he has to face a righty.
That's true. So, I mean, you look at maybe one or two at bats at best against a lefty there.
Yeah, and 4,100 DraftKings really isn't cheap enough to go with that.
Yeah. Cubs and Brewers next year. Jimmy Nelson versus Brett Anderson. Cubs, I mean, you want to talk about a ridiculous price tag on DK. I mean, they're priced up basically if they're in cores.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jimmy Nelson hasn't been that terrible of a pitcher even last year. So I understand why they're pricing them up, but I think they're just out of range for me at all. I mean, you're going to save a lot of cap space with whatever pitchers you go with tonight, but having to put two or three $5,000 guys in your lineup if you're going with the Cubs, it's going to really mess up roster construction. And then with that said, though, they might be low owned just for that fact because they are so priced high on DraftKings.
Yeah, they are. And I mean, FanDuel, it's much more reasonable because we're not dealing with the Schwarber at 5K. And, Rizzo 4K, Bryant 4.2. Yes, they're expensive, but Zobus 3K, not bad. I think they're a little bit more in play on FanDuel. On the Milwaukee side, I mean, there is a ton of right-handed bats here. Brett Anderson's a guy I don't know how deep he's going to go into this game. Rolls a ton of ground balls, but also doesn't miss a lot of bats. So I do have some interest in some of these Milwaukee guys.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the other side of that. I agree with you. I don't know how far Brett Anderson's going to go in this game, but I think he's going to have an effective outing. We saw Milwaukee bats not really do too much at times. I know it's just been a short sample size, so they can kind of go quiet. But I don't mind Brett Anderson. I don't think I play him just because you don't know if he's going to go 3 innings or if he's going to go 6. But I don't see too much that I like with Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean, you always look, there's such a boom bust offense, and it's really, I mean, that Colorado series, it was like they get shut down for 4, 5, 6 innings and then have one big outing, and then that was it.
Yeah, so I don't want to risk all my money on just one big inning.
Yeah. Reds and Cardinals next year, Amir Garrett versus Mike Leake. I don't love this game as far as hitters go. I mean, in Busch Stadium, which doesn't really play that well at this time of year. Even though Leake has struggled against lefties, I don't think there's enough to get a full-blown stack here for Cincinnati.
Yeah, this is one game where I'm not even thinking about stacking. The only 2 guys that I really like in this game would be Fowler and Diaz, just because they're at the top of the lineup and they can do so much at the plate and in the on the base path. So I do like those 2 guys. But other than that, I'm probably voiding this game.
Yeah, it's not particularly thrilling. I'm with you there. Cleveland, Arizona. I mean, you want to talk about probably the most stackable game on the night. This is probably it.
Absolutely. What side are you looking at, though? Because I think both pitchers could get hit pretty hard.
I do too. I mean, we'll start with Cleveland here, and we'll look at Shelby Miller, who was just absolutely awful last year. His numbers before getting shut down: 400 WOBA allowed to lefties, 1.47 home runs per nine. Against a lefty-heavy lineup in Cleveland, I mean, that's not good.
No, absolutely not. And you got a lot of guys in Cleveland who can flip around the side of the plate and bat lefties like Santana and Lindor. So that definitely is going to be trouble for him. If I do remember a little bit, I think Miller wasn't too bad when he came back off one of his stints on the DL, but I agree with you. Back at Arizona, where he had a humongous ERA at home last year, it is not going to be a good game for him. There's just too much potential, especially from the left side, that could really do some damage for him. Outside of Encarnacion, he's really like the only righty who could do some damage.
Yeah, and I mean, expensive, but I don't really care here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got a lot of things going in your favor. It is probably, in my opinion, the second or third best ballpark for hitters, and then you have a terrible pitcher. So it's much like the Baltimore game, but you kind of have a little bit better feeling that this starting pitcher might stink a little bit more.
Yeah, and on the other side, I mean, Josh Tomlin, really home run prone, reverse splits guy. I mean, a lot of 356 WOBA to righties, 2.03 home runs per nine. Um, guys like Pollock, Goldschmidt really stand out. The WOBA wasn't great from lefties last year, but the home runs were still there. So, I mean, Peralta and Lamb still fit the bill.
Oh, absolutely. And I think those guys are priced pretty well, too. And you even look at Goldschmidt with all that he's able to do at the plate on the base paths. He's only 5,300, and he's probably one of my top first basemen on the night. And then you can fill him in with the guys who hit behind him like Lamb or Pollock in front and most likely have a pretty good night.
Yeah, so I mean, this game's going to be popular, probably highly owned on both sides, but certainly one that you want a piece of.
Yep.
Seattle, Los Angeles, Jesse Chavez, Giovanni Gallardo, two average, and I'm probably being generous, right-handers. I don't know if there's enough stacking potential in this ballpark. I mean, you just don't usually see huge run totals out there in LA.
No, absolutely not. It's one of those ballparks that you have to forget about when you're constructing your DFS lineup. I think the only good thing here is looking for some big power hitters, most likely like Cruz and Trout, and maybe calling it a day. There's really not much to like. You even look at guys who are even priced considerably, like Seager, only 3,900 when you compare him to other guys out of position. I still can't get myself to play him.
No, I mean, this ballpark really is death to power, which is kind of a huge issue. And I think on a night where it might get a little bit high scoring with how the pitching is, I don't think a lot of, upside potentials here outside of maybe a couple of those names.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at both teams, they really haven't shown too much so far in the season. I know it's only been a week, but I want to wait and see how things progress before going full stacks with either one of these teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think if this was in Safeco and we saw how Safeco played home runs wise last year, I may be a little bit on board, but I just don't like going to LA and trying to find offense.
Yeah, I've been there one time. I remember Josh Hamilton was in the stands, and I don't know, it was a very big ballpark. So just personal preference, I'm staying away from it.
Yeah. So wrapping up stacks here, I mean, going back down the list, I mean, Indians and Diamondbacks are two of our favorites. Houston's one where, it's been boom or bust so far, but a lot of bust. I just want to be on the train when it does go off.
Yeah, Minnesota as well. I think that has a lot of potential. And I think even though they're highly priced, that Cubs offense, if they go off, they might be low owned because they are too high price-wise, especially on DraftKings.
Yeah, and then we talked about Oakland, Texas, Baltimore Yankees, kind of a price considered stack as well.
Absolutely. There are a lot of options, unlike most nights.
Yeah, so with the pitching, it brings a ton of stacks. You can check out dailyfantasycafe.com for all our great tools and content.